Look up the next time you're near a port. There's a machine standing at the edge of the water that is taller than a 20-story building. It weighs over 1,600 tons. Its legs straddle a ship the length of 4 football fields. And in a single movement, it lifts a 30-ton steel box off the deck and sets it down on land in about 90 seconds. This machine is called a ship-to-shore gantry crane, and it is the reason global trade actually works. Without it, every container sitting on every ship in the world stays on that ship. Nothing moves. No iPhones, no sneakers, no flat-pack furniture. The crane is the last physical link between the ocean economy and your front door. Now, here's the part that has started making governments very uncomfortable. Roughly 80% of the cranes currently operating at American ports were built by a single Chinese company. In Europe, the number is similar. So were most of the cranes in Southeast Asia, the Middle East, and South America. One company, headquartered in Shanghai, quietly became the manufacturer of the most critical piece of infrastructure in global trade. And it did it so thoroughly, so methodically, that there is now no realistic alternative. Not in the United States, not in Germany, not anywhere. The company is called ZPMC. And almost nobody outside the logistics industry has ever heard of it. To understand how one company cornered this market, you have to understand what a ship-to-shore crane actually costs and who used to build them. For most of the 20th century, the crane business was spread across the developed world. American companies built cranes for American ports. German companies built cranes for European ports. A California-based firm called Paseco was one of the dominant global manufacturers. These were high-skill, high-margin industrial products. The kind of thing that a country building a serious port bought from a serious industrial nation. ZPMC was founded in 1992 inches Shanghai. China at that point had no history in this industry. No expertise, no client base, no reputation. What it had was a state-owned parent company, the China Communications Construction Company, backed by state banks willing to absorb losses that a private company never could. And it had an offer that the port industry had never seen before. ZPMC came to market with prices 30 to 40% below anything a Western manufacturer could match. Not because they were cutting corners on quality, the cranes were good. They were undercutting because the Chinese government was, in effect, subsidizing the difference. For every crane ZPMC sold below cost to win a contract, the state banks quietly covered the gap. This is not a business strategy a private company in Ohio or Hamburg can compete with. The Port of Miami was one of the first American ports to sign with ZPMC in the mid-1990s, then Long Beach, then Seattle. Port operators are under constant pressure to keep costs down, and ZPMC made the decision easy. A Liebherr crane from Germany might cost $12 million. A ZPMC crane of comparable capacity came in at $8 million, and ZPMC would ship it pre-assembled from Shanghai on its own dedicated heavy-lift vessel, ready to install. By 2000, Paseco was gone. The American crane industry, which had existed for decades, was dismantled not by a hostile takeover but by a price point it could never match. The same thing happened in Germany, in Finland, in Japan. One by one, the domestic crane manufacturers in every developed country either exited the market or shrank to a fraction of their former size. ZPMC did not rush this. It took 30 years. But today, ZPMC has delivered over 3,000 cranes to more than 100 countries. They control somewhere between 70 and 80% of the global market for new ship-to-shore cranes. For years, nobody in the port industry thought of this as a security issue. It was a procurement issue. You want a crane, you call ZPMC, you get a crane. The machines worked, the prices were good. The lead times were manageable. Then, in 2023, things changed. A joint investigation by the US Senate and the FBI found cellular modems installed in ZPMC cranes operating at ports across the United States. These were not components that had any obvious operational function. They were communication devices, capable of transmitting data, capable of receiving remote commands. Port operators were not aware they were there. The Wall Street Journal reported the finding. Congressional hearings followed. The concern is not complicated. A modern ship-to-shore crane is a networked machine. It runs on software. It can be monitored and updated remotely, which is how ZPMC provides maintenance and diagnostics to its clients. That remote access is a feature when it works for you. It becomes a vulnerability when the entity on the other end of that connection is a state-owned enterprise whose government has, in written national security law, the legal authority to compel it to cooperate with intelligence services. Nobody in the US government is claiming ZPMC has done anything. The concern is structural. If you wanted to disrupt American trade, you would want leverage over the machines that move cargo. And right now, 80% of those machines were built, and in many cases are still maintained by a Chinese state company. The Biden administration took the issue seriously enough to announce a $20 billion port security initiative in 2024, with a specific goal of replacing ZPMC cranes with domestically manufactured alternatives. The plan identified an American company, Mitsui, and its U.S. subsidiary as a potential domestic supplier. The first U.S.-made cranes under this program are scheduled for delivery in 2026. But here's the scale of the problem. There are approximately 200 to 250 ship-to-shore cranes at major U.S. ports. Replacing all of them takes years, requires factories that don't fully exist yet, and costs more than most countries spend on their entire port infrastructure in a decade. In the meantime, the ZPMC cranes keep running. The same dynamic that put ZPMC in this position is what makes it nearly impossible to displace them. Building a ship-to-shore crane is not like building a car. These are one-of-a-kind structures, engineered to the specific dimensions of each port's berth, each terminal's layout. A factory that builds them needs specialized welding capability, a heavy lift production facility, and a workforce that does not currently exist at scale outside of Asia. Training that workforce takes years. Building that facility takes years. And in the meantime, the global shipping fleet keeps getting bigger, which means ports need bigger cranes, which means demand keeps flowing to the one company already producing at scale. ZPMC also does what every monopoly in this series does. They expanded. They don't just make cranes anymore, they make offshore wind foundations, they make bridge components. They built the steel towers for the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge, the longest sea-crossing bridge in the world. They're an infrastructure company that happens to have started with cranes, in the same way CIMC is a crane company that happens to have started with containers. The world's ports are not going to stop needing cranes. Global container volumes are projected to keep growing through 2040. Every new terminal being built from Lagos to Colombo to Houston needs new equipment. And for most of those projects, the economics still point to ZPMC. There's a pattern running through all of this. Shipping containers, ship-breaking beaches, port cranes. In every case, the world optimized for the cheapest possible solution. And in every case, the cheapest possible solution turned out to be Chinese. Not because of a coordinated plan, not because of a single political decision, but because China offered prices that the market could not refuse and backed those prices with state resources that private competitors could never match. The port crane story is a little different from the others because it has a security dimension the others don't. A stranded container or a breaking beach is an environmental problem. A compromised crane is a different category of problem entirely. But the uncomfortable truth is the same. We built the modern economy on cheap infrastructure. The cranes that unload every ship that carries every product in your life were built by a company most people have never heard of, in factories most people will never see, under conditions that nobody in the supply chain wanted to look at too closely. The next time a port crane swings a container off a ship, somewhere in that machine is a decision that was made 30 years ago. The decision to take the cheapest offer on the table. We're still living inside it. If you want to understand the other half of this monopoly, the three companies that build the containers those cranes are lifting, that video is on the left. And if you want to know why the shipping company that owns most of these routes is now buying warehouses instead of ships, that's on the right. If you think the US can actually replace these cranes in time, or if you think it's already too late, let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe.